How many statistics should I use in my grant application? In this video, I'm going to talk about this question and give a couple of tips around usage of data in a grant application. My name is Benjamin Dean. I'm from grantgetting.com, and I hope you enjoy this video aimed at helping you get more grants. Please check out the download in the description when you're done watching, which has 10 best practice data usage in grant applications in a sort of checklist. So what's the direct answer? How much should I use? Well, the answer is not quantitative. So as to say, there's not necessarily a percentage of text representing sentences derived from data versus text in sentences derived from narrative. I don't believe there's a formula. Now, there may be, and that might be a fun research project to find that, but I don't think it's necessary to apply it like that. What I think is that I have never seen an application that used data correctly that had too much data. Okay? Irrespective of how much quantitative data you bring in, the ability for you to bring it in, bring the right data in, and put it in the right place to tell a story, that's the real magic. That's the real art. That's the real science. That's the real issue to talk about here. Okay? I once wrote a grant application. It was a very short, extremely short, one of the shortest ones ever for relative to the amount of money that was available, which was, I think $20,000 or $30,000, where every statement that I made in that grant application, I decided that it would be a fun thing to have data to support it. Every statement that I made, from talking about the needs in the community to how I was going to do program, to what we've done in the past, to what we anticipate the outcomes would be. There was a quantitative, not qualitative, quantitative data point that supported every sentence or multiple sentences that was making one point. And I used that data to support the point. And we got that grant. Okay, I think it was like $22,000 that we got on that grant. I jammed that thing with data, more data per square inch on any grant application I've ever seen. It was like, 40% data, 30 to 40% data in that grant. That's an incredible amount of space dedicated to data. And so I did that just because it was kind of a shot in the dark grant. I was trying different things, but I think that illustrates the point that I don't think you can use too much quantitative data given that you do it appropriately. So that's what I believe. Okay. So how do you do it appropriately? Well, number one, use statistics to support. Now there may be statistics that are so profound, that are so just shocking and eye-catching and heart-grabbing and mind-messing that you want to lead with them. And that is an exception, and that's great. It turns out that 60% of our community cannot access fresh food on a daily basis. Whoa, that's a big number, right? You might do something like that as an emotional hook. But irrespective of that, the general rule is use stats, quantitative data, to support your story, to support the key points that you want to make. Okay, so that means when you're writing a grant application, the data is there, right? Hopefully you have done some research already and you have some degree of knowledge in the back of your mind that you have these tools to pull in. A grant application is the chance to showcase your impact of a project, what that process will have on real people. And the numbers are important, but the human side, that connection, that cannot be lost. And so blending the story, the narrative, the UX explaining what's going on with a supporting statistic is a great formula. So if you just think about it as two things that fit together, little puzzle pieces that you're, spattering throughout the grant application, quantitative data, not qualitative. We're talking just quantitative right now. Quantitative data with the point that you want to make and pairing them up as best you can. What that means is when you draft your first draft of a grant application, you want to first decide what is the point that you want to make. What is the most important point that you want to make in any one section, right? So this gets into drafting, but this is kind of all tied together. So it's hard to talk about one thing without the other. But you have an entire application, right? And in that entire application, you have at your disposal, the RFP, what they're looking for, the eligibility, you've gone through that. Their preferences, you've gone through that. You've got their rubric, very important if you can get your hands on that. You have these things that better be in there. Let's say you consolidate all that information to 22 points. Throughout the entire application, there's 22 major points that you need to make about this program somewhere in here, right? Make yourself a little checklist. Here's the 22 points. Then go through the application and you've got 16 questions. You're going to address these 22 points, some of them once, some of them 4 times, depending on their importance, throughout the application on these 16 questions. Okay? These are the things that you need data to support. You saying you can do a certain thing in a certain way, you stating the need of this underserved community in a certain way needs a data point to represent it. Okay? That process of using data to support your key points, that's, in my opinion, that's where to start. Okay? Use data as a tool. All right? If you do that, if in that way, I have never seen an application that uses too much quantitative data. Okay, so that's answer number one and really kind of answers the question in totality. But then you get into, okay, there's qualitative data. So qualitative data isn't going to stick out as being, too left-brained in the same way, but truthfully it is. You're collecting this information and you're plugging and playing as supporting evidence for a point. Similarly, you might have a testimonial from a client or from a beneficiary, from someone in your community that you might want to lead with in a section. You might want to conclude with to wrap up a major point in a question. You can use that because they're going to be a little bit more humanized. That's great, but you want to have your bank of testimonials available to you as well. That's data. It doesn't typically pop out as too much. Where I've seen too much testimonials is when you have, let's say, 16 questions in an application, and then you just found that the testimonials as supporting qualitative data fit in question number 10, question number 11, and question number 12. And you didn't put any testimonials before that or after that. It kind of feels like, oh, you just remembered to put in testimonials there and you kind of jammed them in. So you need to think about how it reads. I have seen that before. I've also seen it where there's just like extra character space, left over, and people fill it up with testimonials. Not very eloquent, not very graceful. You could probably contextualize it a bit more, but I've seen that would fall under the category of too much data, albeit qualitative data, where you're just sort of filling up space because you want to try to get as much in there as you can. So be careful of that. Okay, so you've got, using it as supporting evidence, thinking about qualitative and quantitative. There's really 3 other points here. One is relevant data. So not all statistics are equally valuable. The ones you choose need to be highly relevant to the program or project, or better yet, the point that you're trying to make. Okay, as relevant as you possibly can with the least amount of explaining how the statistic works. That's number 1. Number 2, they need to be as specific as you can be. Okay, generalized census data or countywide data or statewide data, that's generalizing broad scope statistics that doesn't directly connect with your work are going to be less valuable than specific localized data. Okay. not looking at a general poverty rate, looking at neighborhood poverty rates, trying to piece together different elements to come to some number that is more specific for your population and whatever variable it is. That's going to be more valuable. That's going to be more specific for this group. If you're operating in rural, let's say rural New York, upstate New York, or, let's say Western New York, and you're using state data in New York, well, like that's not a great idea because there's so much diversity in terms of cities, urban and rural, that how relevant is that data? How specific is that data? Okay, so drill down as much as you can. That's number two on these last few points. The third one is recent data. Okay, so again, that's another variable that you can use to discern whether or not you use it. The more recent the data, the better. Okay, I don't think I need a lot of explanation there. Relevancy, specificity, and timeliness, or how recent the data is. These are three variables that you can use to sort of chop down your data points and use the best data that you possibly can. Okay? The answer to the question, how much data should I include, is however much you possibly want, however much you possibly can, given that you are only using that to support your main points. Try it out. Put it in front of other people to read it. They might tell you there's not enough data. They might tell you it's too much. You're going to get multiple opinions. But if you use this tactic of just using a quantitative statistics to support your primary points that you want to make, I don't think you're going to find that you have too much stats in your application. That story that you're lacing throughout this, you're telling throughout the grant application, that needs to be cohesive. That's a given. If it's cohesive and you have supporting data for your primary points, you've got a formula for a winning grant proposal. Okay, link in the description for additional tips. Comment below if you have questions about putting data in quantitative or qualitative in grant applications. I'd love to hear. And thank you so much for jumping in. I'll see you in the next video.